Your Thursday planner says you have science to read and do, so I'm on E52. I'm going to move this to the side. E52. Still talking about movement and how to make life a little bit easier. So simple machines, even more of them. So the day we covered lever, wheel and axle, and pulley. Today we're going to cover ramp, inclined plane, wedge, screw, and then a compound machine. I almost wish it had its own little section, but it is what it is. I didn't write the book. This pyramid is called the Pyramid of the Sun. It was built more than 1,000 years ago. It is made from mud, dirt, and large pieces of stone, kind of like adobe. It stands more than 200 feet tall. It has definitely eroded over time. 1,000 years ago, there were no bulldozers, tractors, or trucks. People just built this huge pyramid. How do you think they did it? Well, every time we go to music, we have to use a ramp or an inclined plane. They're very similar. So they probably used a system like that, possibly even a pulley, maybe even a lever. Maybe they did have an old school wheelbarrow. What is an inclined plane? How might the people who built the Pyramid of the Sun have lifted the blocks of stone? They might have used a ramp. A ramp is a flat surface that is higher at one end than at the other. It is also called an inclined plane. So plane means any surface that is flat. Inclined means it has a steepness to it. Inclined planes are simple machines that make work easier. How does an inclined plane make work easier? Well, to go up a hill, you have two paths. You can go straight up the hill, or you can go around and around the hill. The ramp may be a longer distance, but it ends up taking up less effort. So, which way should you go? When the load isn't too heavy, you may choose to go straight up. When the load is heavy, you must use a ramp. The stone blocks used to build the pyramid were too heavy to move straight up, so scientists think that the people must have been using an inclined plane. Some kind of pulley system, I bet. A wedge is another simple machine. A wedge is made of two inclined planes placed back to back. A wedge uses force to raise an object or to split objects apart. An axe is a wedge. When an axe is swung, the downward force is changed into a sideways force. The sideways force pushes or splits the wood apart. Another example of a wedge is a plow. A plow is a machine used by farmers. As the plow is dragged through the soil, it cuts through the ground, and the soil is pushed aside. A shovel does this as well. So you can see that this, if you were to cut it in half, you would have an inclined plane here and here glued together. And when you push them down, it splits the wood into the opposite direction. What is a screw? A screw is an inclined plane wrapped around a pole, and more specifically like a spiral. I'm trying to get the lamp just right, but it's kind of dark in here this afternoon. There we go. Is that a little better? Well, at least you have your book in front of you. This machine here is called an auger. The auger is a screw and it drills down into the soil. The ridges of the screw are called threads, and the closer they are together, the less effort it will take. It takes less force to turn a screw than to pound in a nail. That is because the screw is moving a longer distance. Remember, the longer the distance, the less force you need to do work. When you turn the head of a screw once, the threads travel quite a long way. You apply force over a longer distance just like any other inclined plane. What happens when you put two machines together? Well, when you put two machines together, you have a compound machine. So your scissors are compound. These arms of the scissors are levers. And then where they cut together is a wedge. You also have a fulcrum here. And the screw itself is a machine. A water faucet is a compound machine. It's made of a wheel and axle, and it has a screw. You see the threads there where you would put the hose attached here. And of course your bicycle is a compound machine, so is a car. You have the wheel and axle. You have levers. And you have the chain. The chain is on a wheel and axle. And the pedals are levers. Even the kickstand is a lever. Pretty nifty, huh? You didn't know that your bike was a full-fledged machine. So simple and compound machines. We're going to turn back here and get it out your workbook. Trying to mess with the camera so you don't have to stare at the tripod, but I just can't seem to do it without it. I'm sorry. Alright, 261. Please do this assignment in cursive with your name on it. What is an incline plane is my title, so I need to make sure I'm looking at that page in my text. If I just weren't so picky, it wouldn't be a problem, right? A ramp is an incline plane that is higher at one end. A ramp is also called a incline plane. I'm not really sure why they ask us that question, so we're just going to mark it out. I do that every year, don't worry about it. An incline plane makes work less easier by moving an object over a longer distance with less effort, less work. The people who built the Pyramid of the Sun may have used an inclined plane to move the rocks. Two inclined planes placed back to back form a wedge. A knife is a wedge, an axe is a wedge. Some wedges use blank to raise an object. Some wedges use force. Some wedges use force to split objects apart. A wedge used to split wood apart is the axe. The downward force of an axe changes to the sideways force that splits the wood. A wedge used by farmers is a plow. He's got a really fancy one on the bottom of his tractor there. What is a screw? A screw is a blank wrapped into a spiral. A screw is an inclined plane wrapped into a spiral. So if you were to unwrap a screw, you would have a post with this long thing wrapped around it. And I know my artwork is not that great, but it's just wrapped around and around and around and around and around. The ridges of a screw are called threads. A screw with a blank inclined plane has more threads. Oh, look. A screw with a longer inclined plane has more threads, while a screw with a shorter inclined plane has fewer. Okay, what happens when we put them together? Two or more simple machines put together form a compound machine. Now your parents' car is actually a complex machine. It has lots of parts that work together, so it is complex. A pair of scissors is a compound machine. Part is a lever, while the other part is a, what did we talk about? Wedge. A water faucet is a compound machine. Part's a screw, while part is a wheel and axle. A bicycle uses wheels, axles, and a lever. And I'm just reading it from the caption here. If you have any questions about your science or about machinery, don't hesitate to ask.